Hi, I'm an Australian living here in Belarus, and I want to share with you two things that make Belarus an awesome place. It is like a society. It's like a civilization. Let me share this with you. So, when you first come to Belarus, you'll notice a few things. It's very clean. Things work. People are kind of civil to each other. There's no graffiti, there's no rubbish. There's almost no street crime. There's no chance of getting into a punch-on. Maybe if it's like 2 a.m. or something, but barely ever, almost never. All right, you're not gonna have your stuff stolen, your car stolen. Everything's cool. The whole country operates like a small town. Whoa. Everyone kind of knows each other, kind of trusts each other. Everything's cool. Now, it's not exactly like this, but loosely speaking, this is kind of the vibe here. And I realized, wow, this place has been shut off from the rest of the world, that it's its own village. And what happens in a society like this is that it is a society of people together to make a society, not a group of individuals sharing the same space, just wherever they're living at the time. This is our country. This is the attitude here. This is our land, our country, our city, our buildings, our streets, and we take responsibility for them because they're ours. Yeah? So that's why everything's clean. Let me give you some examples. I was at the student dorms the other day. My buddy moved in there. He just arrived, just moved in there for a few days while he looked for accommodation. And it was kind of similar ground to this, if you can see. So you see there's kind of like some weeds in here, right there, right? So what was happening was you had 8 students down on their hands and knees, down here, scraping the weeds off. Always waving people. That's one thing you'll notice too, if you ever do filming here, everyone's waving at you when you're on the camera. It's so funny. Otherwise, they're so polite and shy, but when you're on the camera, they just have a license there. All right, back to the video. So there was 8 students on their hands and knees, like with these little metal tool things, scratching up the weeds. It's like, that's interesting. So I went up to them and it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you doing that for? You know, because if this was Australia and you told students to go and clean up weeds in the university, they'd tell you to F off and get someone to do it. That's why we're paying fees, right? So why are you guys doing it? It's like, oh, everyone has to do it. It's the part to keep the university clean. Okay, cool. Is that cool? It's like, yeah, of course. It's our university. It's like, whoa. Whoa, okay. And I had this flashback to this thing I saw about Japan once, and Japan is known for this, and Belarus has a lot of similar attributes to Japan. Could you imagine? Right? It does. And this is one of them. So in Japan, you've probably heard, mythical country, that the children have to clean their own classrooms, at least in some regions. And this helps them have some ownership over it. It's like, that's what they're doing here with the students, right? And it's like, the whole country's like this. I was in a mall the other day, a very working class area of Minsk. I was just in a shopping mall very briefly, and these 2 boys are walking past. They were around, I would say 16 years old. And you know, there is some cultural deterioration here as well, and you do get some complaints of younger people not towing the line all the time, although they generally do. And one of them accidentally dropped, and unaware to them, dropped the lid of their coffee cup. So they had like takeaway coffees and a little plastic lid thing that you put on top. That fell off. And I saw it fall off. And I was shocked. This is the first time I'd ever seen anything like this. There's actually rubbish on the ground. And I'm just like, whoa. And then this boy, who I would estimate to be around 10 years old, he got up, he ran over to the boy and said, excuse me, you dropped your coffee lid, right? And then the boy, the older boy, whose coffee it was, he went and picked up the lid. I'm like, wow, what happened there? That's interesting. And I've since asked some Belarusians about this and why it happened. And he explained to me the process here of why he did that and why he agreed and what happened. And he said that, and I've been told consistently that this is because when the young boy told the older boy, he was actually doing that boy a favor. Because if that older boy had littered, it would be such a shameful, horrible thing to do. And he wanted to get that older boy to avoid having this feeling and this experience of being the one to trash the country. And that's why he told him. He wasn't telling him, hey, pick up your rubbish, you bum, right? He was telling him, oh, you left that there, just so you know. And the other boy's like, oh, wow, I almost littered. How could I trash my own house, right? Because that's kind of how it's treated here. Now, it's not this perfect, don't get me wrong, right? The country's not this perfect. It's not this together thing entirely, right? I don't want to misrepresent the place. But there is a feeling of that here. It is still Slavic, it's still a bit kind of cold and funny with some things. But overall, you do get this sense of we're together, which is really lovely, really lovely. Second thing is, you have a level of honesty here, and this is complicated. There's factual honesty, but then there's an emotional honesty here as well. So let me touch on the factual honesty first. People just tend to tell the truth. Excuse me. People just tend to tell the truth. Are very open, don't have this kind of pride thing. People are just honest. It's like, again, the country town thing. It feels like a country town where everyone knows each other, everyone's legit. You leave your doors open, no one lies, no one blah, 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 blah. So there's a bit of this. Now again, it's not perfect, it's not exactly like this, but this is a theme. And then you have this kind of emotional honesty. And what I've realized is that in Western countries, what we have is this kind of ego thing that we try to protect. Our pride and our ego. You're trying to save face, create an image, play it cool. This is the kind of vibe that we have. Whereas here, they don't really have that. They have this kind of innocent vulnerability. There you go, another waiver. They have this kind of innocent vulnerability. And it's so mature and so refreshing, and I freaking love it. People just tell you how they feel. They admit their own vulnerability. They admit their own insecurities. Now, I've done a whole lot of interviews with girls, which you'll see pop up on the channel over time. And I've already had this. I've only done a few at the moment. And I already had this. One girl who I interviewed, who I know from the university, she's only 18. And she's really exposing her soul and her weaknesses and her life experiences on the camera, right? And it's like, geez, that's so typical Belarusian. Now, there are some people who have pride and whatever, but for the most part, you don't see that kind of ego pride thing here that you might see in a Western country. And I really like this. You know, we're all human, right? We have the same emotions, we have the same responses, we have the same instincts. Like, there's nothing special about us. But we kind of have this wall up and pretend we're kind of cooler than we are, definitely in the West, and it's kind of lame, you know? It's kind of high school. It's like this. Whereas here you don't have it as much. People are just kind of more honest, maybe more honest with themselves, maybe. Anyway, so these are two things. I hope you really enjoyed this. I think that these help to get to the soul of Belarus and how it is fundamentally different to Western countries. Now again, for the 8th time I want to reiterate, it's not perfect here. Everything I'm saying now does not hold perfectly for everyone, but these are two themes that I've witnessed kind of over and over again in this country. One thing I have seen in this country is a big problem when Western men come here and want to date local women. There's a lot of cultural confusion, and what I've seen a lot is Western men see a lot of hope here. They see beautiful women that are friendly and smiling, and then after a month or so of experience with them, they get frustrated, angry, jaded, they start hating, and they leave to somewhere else. So this is not every man, but this is a good proportion of foreign men that come here, and it's quite sad to see. So if you want to have a greater understanding of what's going on here, please feel free to explore my channel. If you feel it's necessary, do subscribe, and you can see my whole catalog. And if you want a more tailored and more advanced experience, I do have a website called marriedinminsk.com where you can speak to me directly and tap into my higher levels of knowledge. Because here on YouTube, it's a mass audience. I have to keep things reasonably simple and straightforward. But on that website, I go into a lot more detail, a lot more advanced, really in the heads of people here, and how things work here, especially from a dating and marriage and family perspective.